Well, Rafael, I am so happy that you invited our guest to do a podcast with us today.
I am too, Yvonne. Met him about a year ago at a conference and immediately knew that the two of you would just hit it off because I thought, oh my gosh, some of the thoughts that he communicated then were so similar to what you've been talking about for a long time. So glad to bring him on.
So we're excited to share our interview with DJ McConnell. He is out of New Orleans, Louisiana, and he's a nurse case manager. So let's go talk to DJ.
Let's do it.
We are welcoming DJ McConnell to the stage. Hi, DJ.
Hello, how are you both?
We are good. How are you?
I'm doing really great. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been a fan for many years. I've listened to this podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Good to hear. So before we get going with our conversation, let's get a little bit of an icebreaker out of the way. So DJ, tell our listeners, where are you joining us from? And what is the weather like there today?
So I am joining you from New Orleans, Louisiana, and this feels like the one spring day a year we have access to. Typically, we go from winter to summer, and today is 75 degrees and extremely pleasant. In fact, I just went on a walk before we started this because it was just so nice outside.
Well, I think everybody knows that Ralph and I are in Tampa, and we're both in Tampa today. Yes. And the weather's quite nice today. It's not also very cool.
It's a pleasant surprise.
I was telling my daughter the other night, I think it might be our last little cool bit before we get into the blazing heat and humidity. So
yeah, before your air conditioners start begging for mercy. I know it.
That's right. That's right. Well, the other thing I want to ask us is, what's the last thing that surprised you? And I'm going to start with you, DJ.
The last thing that surprised me. Okay, so over the weekend, we took my wife's parents out to dinner, and it was a really nice restaurant. It's a fancy restaurant, and what surprised me was her dad had so much joy from this experience that being able to witness that on the other side of the table, I didn't think I was going to react that way, but seeing him have just a wonderful time, it was very heartwarming. And that, I guess, surprised me emotionally that I reacted that way.
Very nice. Awesome. Ralph, what was the last thing that surprised you?
I love that already, DJ, because it's true, right? Sometimes we surprise ourselves at the reaction, and especially the joy you're feeling in watching somebody else really enjoy the situation. Yvonne, I just came back from DC, and what surprised me was the madness that's happening up there. We all see it, we all know it, we all read it, but to be there in the middle of it all, it's as crazy as the TV shows and everything that's going on in the universe.
Oh, wow. I don't know if that's a good thing. So the last thing that surprised me, so I was at an event also last week in California, in San Diego, and I wasn't surprised by this first part. I actually I helped to organize the event, and for the first time in a really long time, I was able to observe more of the event than I was organizing or in the moment of moderating or whatever. And what really surprised me is how many folks engaged. I love it when people engage in a conversation. Normally we go to a conference or an event where people are speaking, and it's the typical people get up on a stage and talk at the audience, right? We designed the event to be very engaging. And sometimes we've done that, Ralph, you and I, where we go and try to do that, and people are just staring at you with SpongeBob eyes, blink, 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 blink. But this time we had a lot of really good engagement. And so it surprised me, and it also made me very happy to see that kind of engagement. So I guess I'm a little surprised because Ralph and I talk a lot. We often sort of moan about how we feel like that is kind of lost, right? That we are all so busy and bogged down with our day-to-day and all that kind of stuff that we don't allow time. So that's why I asked the question, what's the last thing that surprised you? Because I think it's really a good thing for us to allow ourselves to be open, be curious, to be surprised. So I think that that's a really good thing that we should all focus on a little bit more.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah, great.
Teaching moment over. All right. So DJ, tell us, for folks that might not know you, please introduce yourself and let us know where you fit into our wonderful workers' comp ecosystem.
Yeah, so I went to LSU and I got a degree in psychology, and I guess decided that I hadn't racked up enough student loans. So I waited a couple years and went back and got a nursing degree. I worked in hospitals, emergency rooms, cardiac units. Didn't love it. Tried home health for about a year or so. Didn't love it. Kept bouncing around. I wanted to find something that made sense. And I had a family member who was a nurse case manager for work comp. And that's how I had found access to this space. And that was in 2011. And I've not looked back.
That's awesome. And so you are now a nurse case manager, is that correct?
So I am a nurse case manager here for a small company in New Orleans called Bailey-McCaffrey. And I'll say that I worked here as an employee for 13 or so years. And last year I had the opportunity to take over the company, which I did. So I am now experiencing a whole new set of fears at this stage of life as I navigate sort of that process. So I am fully ingrained in this world of work comp, as we have other case managers who work here, as well as vocational therapists as well.
I love that. So we were chatting just a little bit before we started recording and talking about, the things we want to talk about in today's episode. So I want to ask you, what is one thing you wish someone had told you when you first found yourself in the workers' comp world? What is one thing you wish somebody had told you early on?
So that's a good question. And it's something we discuss in here a lot. I think that what I wish I had known early on is how much emphasis is required in being able to navigate the process from a communication standpoint. So let me say what that means. The medicals, whether it's a low back injury or something catastrophic like a burn or a spinal cord injury, the trajectory of those medicals, for the most part, by and large, are the same, unless some new technology comes up. Mm-hmm. But what's different and more challenging, and which isn't taught even in nursing school or otherwise, is how do you speak to someone who you're meeting on the worst day of their life? Okay, that is not a skill that, even if there was a program in nursing school for, a workers' compensation nurse, I think it would probably get overlooked because it's still not something that's discussed enough. Imagine a 22-year-old spinal cord injury. Those conversations with that mom is a level of technique that you either learn the hard way or you learn through, role playing or something like that, which is something that we do a little bit here as of late. So I think that's something that caught me off guard.
Interesting. And I have been in quite a few conversations about just that lately. In the role that I have at Institutes of Health, that is also something that we talk about quite a lot. So interesting. I'm going to come back to that a little later, I think. So if you could change one thing about how the industry deals with that piece of it, it's hard to articulate that in one little sentence, right? Because you're talking about, it's hard to know, like the people that have that bad thing happen to them, they don't know what's coming, right? But if you could change one thing about the process and how we communicate on that particular day or, a few times after the injury occurs, what would you change?
I think from my perspective as the nurse, when I'm assigned that file, it often comes with, I need you to go there within the next 24 hours, and I need you to get all of this information. I think that's unrealistic. I think sometimes showing up and saying, hey, this is who I am. We don't have to talk now because you're hysterically crying and this isn't the right moment is more than enough. Here's my phone number, or here's my card. Here's a sheet that explains, what my role is for you. I'm here for you when you're ready. It feels, uncomfortable to say, well, do you have a 2-story house or a 1-story house, right? I'm worried about wheelchairs going in. That's just not the conversation that needs to be had right then. And I think that aspect is a bit overlooked. And I wish that the expectation on the front end could soften or maybe change a little bit. Because if we're allowed to use sort of our ability to read the room, maybe we can get all that information. It depends on the injury. It depends on the family. It depends on the dynamics. But sometimes just the introduction is more than enough. And sometimes that's too much.
So, all right. Talk to me about, so you're a nurse case manager, and tell me again, you said you've been in that kind of role for how long?
13, 14 years.
Okay. Can you talk to us about, is there something, whether it's the injured worker or other stakeholders in the system, is there something that is misunderstood about the role of a nurse case manager, or can you shed some light on that in terms of how people maybe mistake your role and what you're supposed to be doing?
I don't think so. Most of the adjusters or risk managers or TPAs, most of them understand what the role is. I think that, and again, we're focused on some of the catastrophic injuries, so the needs are a bit different from a rotator cuff or a torn meniscus or something like that. I think they understand what the role is. I just think that if they could feel what that moment's like in the waiting room of the operating room or something like that, if they could feel the emotions in the emergency room, I think that it would fix itself. But because I'm having a conversation with somebody 8 states away about this injury here in New Orleans, and I'm there navigating those things, I think maybe somewhere along those lines, the translation gets sort of messed up. But in general, they understand what our role is, which ultimately I will say is saving time. I can't make or suggest somebody have surgery. I can't force a doctor to, agree to this treatment versus that or return to work. That's not my role. But I can cut out all the, the delays, the gaps in care, the issues with, 1010 forms in Louisiana and things like that, and turn, what would happen in 6 months into 2.5 or 3. And you do that over years, and, the amount of time you get back is significant.
Awesome. So let me ask a different question, kind of like getting at the same thing, but a little differently. So where would you say communication breakdowns occur most frequently between your role of what you're doing and others in the claims ecosystem in workers' comp?
So, boy, there's different ways in which the communication breaks down, but I think that the thing that if I could wave a wand and do one thing, it would be the injured worker on that day or the next day or the week is already afraid. They're showing up to the game terrified. Name your reasons, right? I don't want to repeat them all because I listen to the podcast. I know this is discussed, but their bank, their mortgage doesn't care that they're not at work. Their car, all those things. They show up scared, and there's no formal education process, right? There's nobody. Well, there is, but if everybody's too busy, there's not somebody sitting down there listening to them and saying, okay, this is what the process looks like. Because sometimes when something gets denied, it could be because of poor documentation from the provider, which has nothing to do with the TPA or the insurance company. And so understanding that there are lots of different ways where things could go wrong, and so conversely, lots of different ways to fix things, is a big opportunity on the front end. And this is about framing this as, especially as case management, as a benefit to them as a guide, a spirit guide in the work comp process, call it whatever you want. But that level of communication is so important in the beginning, because if they're not getting it from me or the insurance company or somebody, they're going to look for it from somebody else. And that person's typically an attorney. And that's understandable and reasonable in those scenarios. And that is almost 100% because of lack of communication or not understanding the process. And so we fix those things on the front end, and maybe the back end looks a little bit different.
Such good stuff, DJ. I mean, really, it's deep, right? Because I think I want to at first ask the communication aspect of it. Not taught in school, very seldom not taught as you walk into these positions. So where do we go for that? I think Yvonne asked you the right question. What do we change? How do we change it? How do we make it, right, so that there is that better communication from day one? I mean, based on your experience, and you've got years now of this under your belt, what do you think?
I think that one of the things that sort of bleed into the lack of communication, or communication that could happen but doesn't, is maybe caseload. I've spoken to adjusters who have 250 plus files. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault. And that makes things very difficult. And we talk about the same thing here as nurse case managers. We too can have too many files where we're just putting out fires instead of preventing them. If we find ourselves in a scenario where we're putting out fires, we're not doing anybody any justice, because our job, if nothing else, is to prevent those from happening in the beginning. So how do we prevent it? System-wide, that's a tough question to answer. I don't know that I have it. I know locally here, for me personally, it started, I consume podcasts, right? Like I added y'all's to the list, right? Because it's in my wheelhouse. But I also listen to a lot of podcasts about, you've talked about it on here before, emotional intelligence and being able to put yourself in somebody else's position. I think those things are really important and should be taught to everyone, including risk managers, including employer. I mean, it starts sort of there and it trickles down from that point of view. I wish I had a better answer as to how to fix it, Rafael. I just simply do not.
No, none of us do.
Yeah.
Right? And so your input is really important. It's so significant, because my next question, very much in line with that, is that first conversation. You're so right. It's so significant. And we all have made that mistake of coming in on a whirlwind, getting to what we think is the substance, and you learn that that's the last thing he or she needed. He or she needed a softer voice, maybe an explanation of what's happened and what's about to happen next. Just maybe to listen a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I'll paraphrase that. If your first conversation, if I said nothing, it would be far better than a lot of the alternatives, right? Just someone on the other end of the phone who picked up and is now ready to absorb whatever issues that are going through. And then we take each one and we tackle them individually. It's really important. It's the thing. In fact, I'll recommend to adjusters when I get a file, hey, don't let the first time they hear my voice be the first introduction of a nurse case manager. Do me a favor and let them know you've assigned one, that I'm independent and that I'm there on their, to benefit them. And then let me call them, because that framework alone is significant in the sense that if that doesn't happen, I'm a spy for the insurance company, right? I mean, that's how it's interpreted. And if it does happen, now I'm an asset to their benefit. I mean, just a 30-second phone call can change the entire dynamics of what it's like for me as a nurse to manage a work comp claim. It's extremely important.
That's kind of what I was getting at when I asked you the question of misunderstandings, because we hear that a lot, right? We hear that once a nurse case manager is assigned on a file, a lot of times, and particularly based on the culture of the injured worker, it could be even worse, right? They're not very trusting of the nurse case manager, and they do think that it's somebody that's there to spy or what have you. Sorry, Ralph.
No, right on the money. Yeah, because it's that trustworthiness that we're talking about. Immediately, that individual is going to make up his or her mind as to whether I like you and I can trust you. And if I don't, then things don't go well no matter what you do and what you try. If I don't, then I'm not going to give you all that I should be giving you for you to really help me get to where we all want to go.
Exactly.
We've all seen it, every single day on thousands and thousands. So I think what you bring to the table sounds so incredibly simple, but it's so amazingly true and key to the success of our entire system, our entire workers' compensation program. Yvonne and I oftentimes have conversations. I'm sort of the guy who says, but who's going to pay for that? What about the economics of? If I'm keeping you from having that first conversation about substance and just letting you get to know each other, wait a minute, there's going to have to be a second and a third call. That means more activity. That means more cost, right? So the mathematician in me says, no, I can't allow that. The economics in me says, this cannot happen. But the reality of it is, once you see a few of these cases, you figure out that was the worst possible thing to do or the worst way to handle. The best is let you. And I mean, DJ, there's something about you. I immediately caught on to it when we met. I don't know, it was about a year ago.
It was lobby. Yeah, it was lobby about a year ago. Yeah.
At a conference. The way that I think you communicate, the way that you enrich the conversation with your history and your experience, but there's something incredible about you that immediately I said to myself, Yvonne and I have to have you on the podcast to talk about the personal component of this, right? Because I think all of us have a job to do, but boy, oh boy, we can do it better, right? We can improve.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's incredible. Thank you.
It's you're doing it here again. I can see it all over again. I love it. I really do.
Well, I kind of want to go back to something you said, DJ, because it's come up several times this year, the different people that we have interviewed. And you mentioned about caseloads, right? Both with the claims staff and with nurse case managers as well. So I have something provocative to say.
Hang on tight. Here it comes.
And I think that this might not make me friends with certain companies, but I've been saying this for a long time, Rafael. This is something that I've been on to, and anyway, if we know that the number of claims an individual is asked to manage directly impacts the outcomes, and we know all the stuff, right? We know that early intervention, the sooner we get somebody on a claim, all those things. If those are the things that are suffering, and if communication is suffering because we've got certain folks tasked with too many files, I would say we are in a time right now where I think claims adjusters and nurse case managers like yourself can be a lot more picky about where they choose to work. We know that there is a huge shortage on all fronts with everything medical, right? But that's also the case, and we've been talking about it for years with, I think we started talking about it before COVID, but then it was exacerbated with COVID, with the number of folks that left during COVID, right? But right now, with the shortage of people that we have to do the job, I personally think that you all should be a lot more choosy about where you choose to work, where you choose to have your desk, because if the company you're working for is not supporting a reasonable amount of claims to manage and giving you the tools that you need to do all the things that you just outlined are the best way to have, good outcomes, then, I think it'd be really easy to move somewhere else and get those things. What do you say?
I think that there's nothing that you said that I can disagree with. I think that that's something that I'm also very, very conscientious of here, because I can't, complain about seeing it in one aspect and then do it here in this building. And not all claims are created equal.
That's right.
And so some of them come through as task assignments. Some of them are more routine, rotator cuff tears, knees, and some of them are catastrophic. And one catastrophic work injury could be the equivalent of 10 or more regular claims. And so managing that balance is extremely important for I just do it from a personal point of view. Like, I like the people I work with. I don't like when they're upset or stressed out or tell me that they had to do something on a Saturday, right? Like, something needs to change immediately. And I think if we're going to get really provocative here, it would be financially to my benefit to just keep pouring on and pouring on and pouring on and not hiring more and hiring more and hiring more. I refuse to do. In fact, I'm interviewing people right now for a nursing position. And just to kind of key on to something that we were talking about earlier, the most of the time I spend in that interview is trying to explain to them what the heck we do, because they're all coming from hospitals, But anyway, no, I think you're right. I think you can be picky, and I think you can be picky in many ways, because as you know, there are good and bad in every sort of realm and industry. There are good nurse case managers, there are bad ones, doctors, attorneys, so on and so forth. We don't do anything that is going to jeopardize how we sleep at night. And so we will turn down work or remove ourselves from a file if we're being asked to do something we don't think is ethical. And I think ethics might also bleed into case volume to some degree. I mean, you can make the argument that it's tough to do the job well and to work on behalf of the injured worker if you don't have time to do the work in its most simple form.
DJ, what do you recommend? Because I think every nurse case manager has had a situation where represented claimant and the attorney is the one that's a stick in the mud, if you will. By don't do this, don't do that. No, don't offer this, don't offer that. No, you cannot see the claimant unless I'm right here and it's got to be in my office. How do you handle that personality, if you will?
So Louisiana is very litigious, and we have parishes in this area that are more litigious than New Orleans, that we work in all of them. I do the same thing I do in anything else. If a patient has an attorney, I simply call the attorney and I introduce myself to them. And I say, hey, what are we going to do to make this thing make sense? What are the rules you have for me? What can I do? What can I not do? Is it okay? How do you like to be contacted? I just start the relationship with that person. And over the years, I've gotten to know them really well and am now able to work really well with almost all of them. In fact, I would say lately, simply because an injured worker has an attorney, it doesn't necessarily mean the claim's going to go sideways or south. It can, but it also can if they're not. So I do my best to foster that relationship with whomever it is, whether it's the injured worker or somebody representing them. Because again, I can't complain about bad communication if I'm not doing everything I can to communicate to the best of my abilities. And most, if not all, of the injured workers' attorneys are very receptive to that and often appreciative of my help. But you're right. Here, I can't meet with, I usually don't have any contact. I can't reach out to the physicians without, a 2-week notice and all that stuff. I just follow the rules and do everything I can to continue maintaining the file integrity with whomever's involved.
Love that. I guess it's the same rule, right? If you are open and honest from the get-go, right, and you're telling everybody you're working with what the expectations are, what your intent is, then everything seems to go accordingly. It's when none of that happens that then it breaks down. Yeah.
Agreed.
And reaching out to people and introducing yourself and getting to know who else is involved in the injured workers file or claim.
That's always
really
key,
important.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we need to start winding down. I got a couple more questions for you, DJ.
Right.
How do you personally manage the emotional weight? You said you work a lot with catastrophic claims. So how do you personally manage the emotional weight of that?
The same way I manage the emotional weight of trying to be a great parent or spouse or whatever, I have a handful of non-negotiables, right? I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to, if I'm feeling a lot of anxiety or overwhelm, I'm going to do all the little things. I'll meditate. I have a non-negotiable sleep schedule. I don't worry about setting a wake up time. I set a bedtime, right? I have turned this into almost a machine of self-care because I can see what happens if you don't have it. And do I go overboard a little bit? Yes, probably. Do I like to be to bed really early, too early? Yeah, probably. But I also don't wake up tired, right? And I can get through the day most of the time without feeling that sort of drag or dread. It's a lot of work, and a lot of times I don't want to do it. But in order for me to do it well, those are just things I have to do for myself. I think some people are wired a little, I don't know, I don't want to say calmer, but I think I'm wired to my nervous system runs hotter, I think, than most. And so I need to do more to quiet it down. And so those are the things that I've learned to do over years.
I can relate to that. I am the same way. Ralph knows. He's seen my emotions run high, right up close and personal.
But I love the way you've presented that, DJ, because how incredible knowledgeable, right, of yourself to know. And I love the way you described it. They're non-negotiables.
Yeah.
These are the things I have to do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but I think that you're rare because I don't think there's a lot of people that are very self-aware like that. I mean, I would say, thinking on it really hard, probably it was COVID when I started really taking a hard look at how I show up and noticing when I showed up and I didn't like the way I showed up, being aware of that. So not everybody's very good at that.
So COVID was also the catalyst for me. I had this chronic low back pain for a decade, and I had to figure out a way out of it. And this is a story for another podcast, but it was at that point I started working on me, I guess is the best way to put it. And haven't looked back, hence the non-negotiables, because they work.
I love that.
Me too. It really is. I mean, again, so simple, but so incredibly powerful. It's what we all need, right? To be that honest with ourselves and say, these are the non-negotiables. This is what I've got to do to be better, to be healthier, to be productive.
And it helps because it's not, I have a 6-year-old and I don't have to tell her anything because she sees me doing it. Right? She wakes up in the morning and I'm outside jumping rope or lifting weights and she's counting the reps for me, right? She's in gymnastics now and she's trying to learn how to, do all those things. So it's fun. I mean, it makes that part of parenting actually easy because it literally is by example. And I don't have to say as much as I need to because she watches me live it. I wish I could get her to eat something other than chicken nuggets, but that's a fight for another day.
That's funny.
You can discover how to change that.
It's not a fight I'm willing to have. That's just one I'm happy to lose for today.
That's right. But it's true, leading by example. I mean, if more parents were more as self-aware as you're talking about yourself and having the non-negotiables, they would be better parents because that's, kids will do it to you, man. They will get on your last nerve multiple times. They'll just take you to all those triggers. Yeah. So it's really important. And I wish that I had learned more of this, when I was younger, but it was COVID was the catalyst for me as well. And I went through a health coach certification. Then I went on, I love that so much. I went on to become certified in applied positive psychology. And I love it. So you and I are kindred spirits. I'm going to have to, connect with you on some different things.
I could probably say functional medicine and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, nutrition is another huge part of that. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about either on another podcast or maybe in some educational sessions coming up. So, Ralph, any parting words? Any last questions?
So I think I want to ask, you are a driven man, but I mean, I've taken notes. I've absorbed from you. I've learned from you today. How do you relax? How do you have fun? What do you do to, sort of lay off a little bit of all of this and take it easy for a while?
Yeah, I do everything I can to be home when I'm home. I learned that I can be home, and if I'm still attached to my phone or scrolling, I'm not calming down, right? I'm not relaxing. So one of the things, and probably Yvonne can agree, is just when I'm somewhere, I'm there. I did try to be present. To relax, I mean, most of the time at this point, my weekends are full of activities for my daughter, which in and of itself is relaxing. I do enjoy them. We'll have football season starting, so hopefully Sundays I'll get to go to some Saints games this year. I'm looking forward to that. I have tickets with two very close friends, and that's a big chunk of time. It's such a big chunk of time, it makes me uncomfortable, but we're going to make it work this year one way or the other. Otherwise, just taking it easy, doing things that relax, like that dinner we went to over the weekend. I mean, that's what sort of fills up my cup.
Very nice.
It really is. Again, so simple, right? And those are the most joyful things in life, is the tranquility, the softness, the quietness of all those moments. It really does. It fills you up.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm in a very, very busy period of season, I'll call it, of my life right now. And eventually it'll slow down and those things will change. But for now, that's what relaxing looks like.
Awesome. I can't wait to talk to you more about, so there's a session I just did this last week, and we'll do it more. I'll have a webinar later this month, Self-Leadership Under Pressure. I invite you to watch that.
Okay.
It's on a Friday. I think it's the 22nd. But we had a workshop 30 minutes after we had a session, and I led folks through something called, it's basically a worksheet and sort of reflection, talking about building capacity to show up as your best self. And that is what I wish I could pass on to more people, taking seriously the need to prioritize, like you said. I'm not quite where you are yet. I have some things on paper that I say are non-negotiable, but I'm very bad at letting other people move the line for me.
Sure.
So I need to get better about that.
Boundaries.
Yeah. So I think it's a really great thing to think about, and would love to have you participate with me if you want in any
That sounds great. I'd love it.
Yeah. So last question I have for you is, what do you think we have to look forward to in this industry? So you said you've been in the industry about 15 years. What excites you about the future of our industry?
So I've gotten more involved with local sort of chapters. I've been going to conferences and meeting people. And I think that the people that I'm meeting who are in it are really in it. I mean, they're looking to make an impact and make a change. I mean, as a nurse, we went into this trying to help people.
Sure.
And when I talk to other people in the profession who are also going to these things, I mean, by and large, for the most part, they all want the same thing, which is the right thing, which is, a good recovery, a safe recovery, et cetera. And so I'm hopeful that this wave and this momentum continues. And I know you guys have talked about it on this podcast in the past, but I think the door continues to open, although creakingly slow, when it comes to being comfortable discussing mental health and how that affects a claim. And we didn't get into it, and that's okay, but boy, is that important. And you want to talk about provocative, just saying that can be provocative, but it's important.
It sure can be. Well, again, where I work in Institutes of Health, that's a front and center part of our conversation, everything that we do. So I'd love to talk to you again on several different fronts. But for now, I really appreciate you taking time and spending time with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
And I can't wait to meet you in person.
Same.
All right. And so we always like to say at the end of every episode, hasta luego.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
And thank you. Oh, I love that. That was awesome.
You ready for a warm-up, Rafael?
Yes,
Me,
ma'am.
me, 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 me,
Me. La la
La,
la
la,
la
la, la, la,
la.
la. I wonder if Arya's laughing or cursing at us about now.
This may be right about the time where everybody turns it off.
Hey, Rafael, can you believe it? We are halfway through season 6.
I can't. It just feels like we just got started a couple of weeks ago and now it's halfway through. It's amazing. Time is flying, right?
Time does seem to be flying. So, folks, thank you so much for listening with us. We are currently about to hit 55,000 downloads. We have published 151 episodes. That's a big number.
That's a big number.
And where can folks find us, Ralph?
Well, Yvonne, always, folks can find us on LinkedIn. And I know that we've got a beautiful website that you've put together that folks can come and really learn all about deconstructing comp and our latest project this year, Substack, right? With newsletter and all. I don't know how you find the time, but we are incredibly grateful for everybody who's visiting and absorbing the newsletters as well, right?
That's right. You can also find us on YouTube. We launched our YouTube channel last year, and we're playing around with that a lot more. So go find our YouTube videos and, chat with us out there. You can comment, you can send us messages. And then, as always, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. And like us, rate us, share us with your colleagues. That is how people find us, and that's how we can expand our reach. So like Rafael said, look for us on LinkedIn, Yvonne Guibert or Rafael Gonzalez. And the podcast has its own LinkedIn page, Deconstructing Comp Podcast. So until next time, hasta luego.